Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs. Hey, DAMFAM, and welcome to Season 5 and episode number 726 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Thursday, August 28th, 2025, for broadcast on Monday, September 1st, Labor Day 2025. And kids and cubs, as promised, I promised it to you on Thursday morning show. We have Mr. Grizzly in the house. We got him out of the den, brought him back to the lodge. So I'm very, very, very happy about that. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. You might have heard Lola making some noise back there. So she says hello as well to everyone, I am sure. I do not know what the weather is on Monday. Right now, we finally have some rain. Hallelujah. Although it did rain out my tennis match. So probably no chance of finishing second in this section of the ladder now because there won't be any time to fit the game in. So, but hey, we had it scheduled and I was ready and willing to play. So that's what matters. Just wish I could have played. But Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today, sir?
I'm doing pretty freaking good today, actually.
I like to hear that.
Yeah, well, I like to say it, and I'm, here's the weird part. I, by all measures, I shouldn't be.
Oh,
Well, I took Lola out for a walk around, I don't know what time. We went out around 4:00, I think. I got home and I got home a little bit later than normal because I was writing an exam that went till about 1:40, so I didn't get home, and I missed the 1:45 train, so
right.
I didn't get home till almost 3:00, 2:45, I guess, by the time I got home. So got in, sat down, had a bite to eat. The lettuce I put on my sandwich did not agree with me. See, because I have allergies to many raw vegetables, even iceberg lettuce, which should be, it's basically water, right? But no,
Right.
it upset my stomach. So I took some ginger chews and that helped. And then Lola's looking at me. I'm like, all right, let's go, sweetheart. We'll go. So we get out and I took her around and we saw some friends. She saw a couple people who were happy to see her. And it started to rain. So I'm like, okay, we'll run over and do an inspection. Now, an inspection is when we go to the patio at Lieutenant's Pump, and she inspects the pump, and then we sit there. And sometimes I'll have a beer. Sometimes we'll just do a short inspection. She'll say hi to all the staff, and people come out and say, greet her. There's nobody there, but it was raining. So I'm like, okay, I'll sit and I'll have a beer. It's like 4:30 on a Thursday, and it's raining, and I'm under the cover.
Right.
So the rain stops, and she's getting a little antsy. So I finish my beer. I'm like, all right, let's go. So we get out and we start walking. Rain has stopped. It's all good, right? We walk way up Elgin Street and we get to Place Bell, or 160 Elgin, for those of
Right.
you who might not be familiar with the former name of that building. And I turn left and we start walking down the street and I go, oh, that's right, Metcalf Plaza is open. And I can see that there's the staff is there, the gates are open. Fantastic. I've not been yet. It only opened a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
In a location there where there's a building there that they tore down a bunch of years ago. It's been a vacant lot for, my goodness, it must be 8 or 9 years at least.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, our night mayor, along with the city, in conjunction with a company out of Montreal who does this sort of thing, and an Ottawa promotions company, got together and they built they called it Metcalf Plaza. So it's this wooden deck. They have a bar, they have a restaurant, they have a DJ with a stage, they have go huts because it's outdoors. It's an outdoor venue. It's all lit up and strung up. And I was talking to the staff and there's like, yeah, unfortunately, it's a light drizzle. So it doesn't bother me, doesn't bother Lola. I'm like, yeah, what the heck? I'll have a beer. And I start talking, everybody having a great time. And I'm like, I really want to see this when it's, better weather, because it's been a great summer for outdoor patios because we've had so little rain this
Right.
July and August. July, we had a few rainy days here and there, but not a lot. August, up until now,
Right.
It's been drought. Like South Nation River is at the lowest levels it's been at in forever, right? Ottawa River is very low. So anyway, we're hanging out, we're having a good time, having a beer, and Lola's meeting all the people, and I'm chatting up the staff a little bit harder. And I go, you know what? I got to get home. I got to get home at 5. It's 4:30 right now. I should get rolling. They're like, yeah, okay. So I take a sip out of my beer. I go, whatever's left, don't worry about it. I got to go. I'm going to take her home. We walk across the street and it starts to rain hard. So we stay at 160 Elgin on the Metcalf side. And we get down and we stop and I wait. And I'm like, okay, we can't wait forever. So I run over to the farm boy and we wait underneath the awning in front of the wine store. And Lola's looking at me like she wants to get home. I'm like, all right. It starts raining harder. And she's looking at me and I'm like, well, I'll try and find places where you can walk where it's dry, because she doesn't like hard rain. Drizzle doesn't bother her. Snow is nothing to enjoy it. And somebody said to me, it's because it hurts their ears. Okay, I'll buy that. I don't know. I'm not a dog, so how would I know?
Right.
Some dogs don't mind the rain, but apparently most bigger dogs do not like rain.
Okay.
Well, except for Newfoundlanders.
Right. Because what choice have you got?
They don't care about rain. They don't care about weather, Newfoundlanders. They don't give a damn about weather. They'll dive into Arctic waters to save their people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we finally get home, and then I texted you, and I'm like, I'm going to be a little bit. Lola is soaking wet. I got to towel her off and warm her up and brush her, take all her gear off. Oh, that's got to be washed now. So I had to wash all of that. So I smell like a dog. Thankfully, you can't smell that through the internet. I said, the heck with it. I'm going to pour myself a beer, sit down, and do this show with you. So here's where we are. So all of that should
Smelling like fresh dog.
In a terrible state, right?
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
But I'm feeling good because it was fun.
Nice.
Like she survived it. She doesn't like rain. She survived it. We got home and I toweled her off. And then anybody who has a dog would know, you give your dog a bath and then you know how they get the super zoomies?
Yep.
She did. You've been to my home.
There's not much room for a dog that big and muscular to get the zoomies.
No, there is not.
There's only so long you can run in any direction, really.
And she did it. She didn't damage anything. But when she jumps on the couch, she's 90 pounds plus of solid muscle, as you know. So imagine her flying about 2 meters through the air and landing on the couch. There's a reason I'm not in a rush to buy a new one, right? So yeah, so I mean, she's sitting here at my feet. She just, I gave her a nice brushing, and her brush has it's got a little steam thing in it. Mm-hmm. So I always put a little CK1 with water, so she likes the smell of it. So she smells nice and pretty.
Ah, there you go.
Pretty and warm, and she's staring at me like, Dad, where's my collar? because she always has her collar on.
Right.
And her collar's being washed, and her Shen's kerchief is they're drying right now. So she's kind of, Daddy, I'm naked. I'm completely naked. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. Just we'll put a towel on you later. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, that's how my
not
days
me
go.
without my collar.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, and Bridget can attest to this, if I take her collar off, she goes bananas. She's like it's a panic for her.
Right.
Because when she came into her life, she had a leash, a collar, and a blanket. That was all she had in this world.
Mm-hmm.
I get really emotional about this. So I said, I'm going to get her a new collar. So I got her this bright pink one. She had a pink one before, but it said Harley Davidson. And I'm like, well, whatever. But I didn't give it to her. So I took the old one off, and it sits in her house. But I put the new one on, and she just loved it. So when I take it off her, she gets upset because she thinks I'm taking it away. And I'm like, no, just cleaning it. Come with me, watch. I'll clean it. And then she's like, okay, she's reassured.
Yeah.
Because so much of her life was in and out of shelter and different families and anything that gets removed from her.
Right.
You know, she freaks. Like, we'll go over to Bridget's, and she's great. But after 4 hours, she gets really anxious. And Bridget was like, okay, let's go. We'll go back to your place, because she can't. It's like we don't want to do anything to upset her, because anyway, I get emotional. So sorry.
She's been through enough.
Exactly. So I just want to give her the best life I can, and I should have about 11 or 12 more years with her. So
yeah, cool stuff. No, and like I said, she's love on 4 legs.
She absolutely is.
And for those who haven't had a big dog or the experience, he's not lying. I mean, I'm at least 160, and when we're on the couch together and she decides I'm part of the pack, and then just sort of leans on me and pins me to the couch and says, you're staying here, you're not moving anywhere. You're not going anywhere.
She's about 95 pounds right now, so yeah. She's a solid gal.
Yep. Oh man. All right, Mr. Grizzly. I don't know with the new job and the change of schedule, because different life schedules changed one's ability to actually consume and follow news, particularly when you start that early, and you have to go to bed earlier, and the things that you need to do, if you need to go to certain stores or do certain business early, open certain hours, and
shit, I still gotta go to the drugstore to pick up a script. They're open till 10. I'm
see
good.
but
so as soon as we're done this, I gotta run to the store.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Those types of things, it changes one's ability to consume news. So I don't know how much news you've been able to follow where you are on things. So I'm just going to ask, has there been a couple of things on your mind that you just wanted to speak of? And then if I have anything I want to ask you about, I'll just put it out there.
Well, so the last couple of days at work have not been super, super busy for me. So I've been, I started taking some more courses today just to keep myself occupied. Because there's, when you start a new, well, I can't get into the details of it. It's just, there's projects that I'm waiting to start, but I'm sort of in a holding pattern. So I'm taking a lot of courses, but I do have a fair bit of time where it's like, okay, I'll just read CBC News.
Right.
I read CBC, BBC, and Deutsche Welle, because there's only so much, even though I have, believe it or not, on my computer, they're like, oh yeah, you can connect to your Facebook and Twitter. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
No.
They're like, that's a good idea, Paul. I'm like, I know you're telling me I'm not doing that. I don't bring that into my work world.
Right.
It's in my previous position, I had it on my phone.
Right.
Never on a work computer, never on work computers never. Like, just, I'm sorry. That's not work.
Right.
And where I'm working now, my phone gets locked up into a safe all day. So, unless I go out for lunch, which I just don't do, I have access to CBC, BBC, Deutsche Welle, and CTV. That's kind of it.
Right.
So I can keep up on some things, but there's some other things that I just don't have an opportunity, because I used to go to different, feeds. I'd go to Twitter, I'd go to Facebook, and I'd get, okay, that's interesting. Let me go and do the research.
Right.
Because just because I see something on a social media site, I don't take it at face value.
Right.
I look into it. Well, I don't have access to those things, so I can only see what I can see, which is, like I said, a few different reputable, legitimate, well-established legacy media
Right.
sites.
Right.
And one today had posted a Twitter link that I went, holy crap.
Okay.
If you've, I don't know if you've seen this. Maybe some of the listeners and viewers have. Of course, this is Thursday, August 28th.
Right.
And this is a previously recorded show for those of you who are watching this on a Monday morning. But when you see this clip of Mike Pence absolutely throwing Trump under the bus, watch this.
I watched a little bit of the cabinet meeting this week, and I saw Secretary Bessent speaking very glowingly about the projection is $300 billion in tariff revenue this year. Well, tariffs are a tax, and American importers and businesses and ultimately consumers pay almost all of that. And so literally a week after we managed to extend the Trump-Pence tax cuts and prevent a $2,000 tax increase on working families, the administration is right now boasting of the fact that that the average American household is going to see about $3,000 increase in the cost of goods, because we're paying that. So that's why I referred to Liberation Day. I said could well be the largest peacetime tax hike in American history. I watched a little bit of the cabinet.
Like, holy crap.
Mm-hmm. No
Look,
lies detected there.
well, here's the thing. I do not like Mike Pence as a human being.
Nope.
For a lot of reasons, a number of reasons. However,
Yeah. I know where you're going with this.
I've stated he believes in democracy. He believes in the rule of law.
Yep.
I mean, when Trump basically let his minions want to go and hang him, and Trump didn't do anything about it, and Pence was there to go, no, I'm here to defend democracy and verify the results of the election on January 6th. We all know what took place. Again, I do not like the man. I don't like his politics. I don't like what he has to say. But he does believe in democracy, and he does believe in the rule of law. He always has. The night shortly after he first got elected, he went to see, I think it was Hamilton, with his son, and he walked in, and they booed him. And he looked at his son and said, son, what you're hearing is democracy in action. And I went, I got to respect that. I mean, what he's done, I don't care for. I don't like that he brings religion into it. But again, he believes in democracy. He did not agree with this whole Steele thing, that the election was stolen. He didn't believe any of that. He knew damn well that it was a free and fair election. And he did his part to verify that.
Right.
And Trump's minions wanted to set up some gallows for him.
Right.
So for him, in this instance, the gloves are off. He doesn't give a damn anymore. And he's simply telling the truth. This is not hyperbole. This is not exaggeration. He's telling the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You're bragging about all this money that American taxpayers are paying.
Yeah.
It's a tax. It's the largest tax increase on the American public in a non-wartime situation.
Yep. Indeed. It's the classic taking with one, giving with one hand. Here's the tax cuts. And then, oh, great. And then taking away with the other.
Here's $2,000 in tax cuts. Oh, no, it's going to cost you $3,000.
Yep.
So you're actually losing $1,000.
Yeah. And the conservatives up here propose similar things. Hey, we're going to campaign on a tax cut. We're going to give a 2.5% tax cut, but you're going to lose your child care.
Whoa. Hang on a
Wait
second.
a minute, but that 2% tax cut is going to save me like $1,200 a year, and the child care saves me $5,000. Isn't that a great deal?
Let me do the math here on this. Now, I'm not a mathematical genius, but that sounds like I'm losing.
It's because you are.
I was watching Will Hunting last night, so I'm really mathy right now in my head, even though I'm not good at it. I can tell that is a losing situation.
Yep. But that's the classic giving with one hand and taking with another, and only talking about what's being given, but never talking about what's being taken.
Why would they?
It's a classic conservative move.
Oh yeah, it's par for the course.
Yep.
My goodness.
Indeed. Only look at one side of the ledger.
Well,
It's the same thing with the climate change one, right? It's going to cost
over
us
there.
so much to do this, but they don't do the cost of, okay, yes, we're losing X jobs, but we're gaining these jobs. We're not doing this anymore, but we're doing this. We're not using these materials, but now we have to use these materials. There's a whole under industry, but they only talk about the stuff that you lose. They never talk about what you gain.
I was talking with a friend of mine last week who has had a very long career in the IT industry. And we'll leave it at that. I don't want to give anything away. But we had a conversation, and he says, I watch your show. I'm like, you do? He goes, yeah, absolutely. And his wife is a social worker. So he, who is a very high income earner and has been for a very long time, is completely 100% on board with the UBI.
Right.
And had his wife not been a social worker, he'd still be on board with it.
Mm-hmm.
But she helped, because he's watched the show with her and explained some of the things that, he's not necessarily privy to, because he's, his operational endeavors on a daily basis are concerned with something completely different, right? And he worked insane hours and traveled all over the world for a long time. Anyway, he said one of the things he said about it is, without a UBI, people are going to die in the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, even less than that. And I said, well, there's jobs that exist right now that won't exist in 3 to 5. He goes, my job won't exist in 6 months. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. He's no longer working for that company. He says, because the job in 6 months won't exist.
Right.
So they packaged me out. I'm like, holy crap. He goes, there are so many jobs that will not exist for human beings to do in the next 3 years.
Right.
And if we do not have a UBI, we're going to have big problems. And, in America right now, they got big problems because they just deported all the people who did all the jobs that the average American wouldn't do because they didn't want to work for less than minimum wage. And now they're getting upset because the food is rotting anyway. Yep. What I'm getting at, as I've said a million times before, and I'm going to say it again, I haven't been on the show in a while, so without a UBI, we're all in deep shit.
Right.
And I mean all of us. And even those of us who are gainfully employed are in deep shit.
Right.
Because...
That's at my end.
Okay. So I'm like, that's not here. So folks, myself, will I be directly impacted by it financially? No, because of the industry I'm working in. However, it will affect the greater economy, because if people don't have an income, how do they buy goods and services? So that means more and more people will be laid off. There was an article I read just the other day on the CBC about a pub owner in downtown Toronto who received something like 700 applications for 5 positions. He's like, I want to be able to help all these people, but I simply can't do it. Because 700 for 5 positions. Because something funny is going on right now. I'm like, yeah, jobs are being eliminated for the, bottom line. Well, the bottom line isn't going to work out too well when eventually we discover that, there's nobody to buy the products.
Right. That's the people who are playing Monopoly for real. Forget you have to leave enough.
Yeah.
You can't take it all. You have to leave enough for the wheels to keep greasing, or else it's going to come back and bite you at some point.
Well,
there is a limit to greed.
It's like it falls completely in line with Pierre Poilievre's statement at the start of the pandemic. We're conservatives. We don't believe in these big government programs. We'll give you a tax cut. I don't have an income. How does a tax cut help me?
Right. Right. So I mean, it's not governance for all Canadians.
No, it's governance for those of us who are wealthy, and I
Exactly.
ain't one of them.
Yeah. So no, I agree with what you said there. About Mike Pence, same thing. Don't particularly like the guy. I have a whole other slew of reasons.
I'm on board with those same reasons you are.
I know.
I am. I've heard what he said
Yeah,
and seen what he's done.
but you're right when it comes to those at certain key critical moments, he did make the right decision, and
Yes.
in this case, he is indeed telling the truth. A lot of people are trying to get the message through. Hopefully, the hope is if you have more conservatives or people on that side of the spectrum saying it, people will be more likely to believe it. But we know how it works in Trump world. It doesn't matter whether or not you've been a conservative, dyed in the wool for 50 years, or whether or not you are a liberal. As soon as you say something that contradicts his version of reality, the one he wants you to buy into, you're nasty, and it's,
Yeah, that's where all the
there's
problems
something wrong with you, and right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how many of the people who really need to hear this, are listening to Mike Pence. On the other side, though, however, those who, because we are hearing more and more of them, those who were Trump voters who have decided that they don't like what they're getting and they probably won't vote Republican again. Yes,
one would think.
they might hear Mike Pence say, "Well, this is another conservative that I know to be conservative, even though like he double crossed Trump or whatnot like this." But it's like in this case here, yeah, I don't think he's lying, and and if they hear a couple of others, it's sort of it creates a permission structure.
Mhm. Yes.
But it's not going to be for those who are like, who are still buying all the merchandise, whatnot. It would be for the people who voted for him, for example, because they wanted food prices lowered and they were desperate. And they voted for the guy who was saying that, and it didn't happen. And now they're not going to vote for them anymore. I was hearing about like in the last federal election in the United States, when we got the numbers, it was surprising the number who did vote for the Republicans this time of people who identified as Latino and Black, particularly the men.
You're voting against your own best interest, right? But I need lower egg prices. Yeah, but you're going to be the first one to be shipped out of here. I mean, when Trump spouts on how he wants to remove the citizenship of people who were born in the country because he disagreed. Rosie O'Donnell is an example. A white woman who he's had an issue with for, 35 years, if not longer. A white woman who moved to Ireland because she's like, screw this, I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand. And I'm not a big fan of hers. She's done a lot of, and said and done a lot of things I don't particularly care for or agree with. However, when it comes to her and Donald Trump, I'm on her side.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's just human garbage. But he's trying to revoke her citizenship. A natural born, what is she, third generation American citizen? Or second? She must be second because she's able to get her Irish passport. So she must be second generation. So that means that would mean her grandparents were born in Ireland, which means she could get her Irish passport that way. So a second generation American born citizen who's lived their whole life up until now in the United States, made all their money in the United States, paid a lot of taxes in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like what she has to say. Take her citizenship away. That's not democracy.
Nope. No.
That's a dictatorship.
Yep. The poll that I was talking about is called ICIS Data for Progress. They surveyed over 1,600 Latino voters nationwide, and basically the poll indicated that they're exasperated with both Republicans and Democrats, and the usual campaign playbook isn't reaching them. This is according to MSNBC. According to the poll's top lines, only 34% of Latino voters approve of Trump's handling of the economy, while 63% disapprove. That's a net negative of 29 points. And even among those who once viewed Trump as a strong economic leader, cracks are beginning to appear. 19% said they used to think he was a good businessman, but no longer do. So that's, nearly
Good.
1 in 5.
It's good.
When asked which party they trust more to handle the cost of living issues, 13% said neither, and only 33% said they trust Democrats much more. The poll points to a clear conclusion. Latino voters, especially those who don't feel tied to either party, are not fully aligned with Republicans or Democrats. They are skeptical, disillusioned, and tired of promises that never turn into results. So, and I mean, in the election 2024, Trump pulled nearly even with Kamala Harris among Latino voters. He won 48% to hit her 51%. And that in 2020, it was 36 to 61% against Joe Biden. So if you're wondering if there's something about the fact that he was running against a woman that may have changed certain votes,
Yeah.
right? Because 61 to 36 versus 51 to 48 in just 4 years.
Mm.
I guess when he spent part of his first 4 years separating babies from their parents.
Which he was proud to do.
Yeah. But I mean, it also indicates just how much, as the saying goes, it's the economy, stupid, in the United States,
Mm.
right? Yes, I understand you're doing these to immigrants. I understand that you're calling the ICE teams in like this, but I still need to eat.
Yeah.
And you're promising that I can eat. You're not promising I can stay here, but I need to eat more than I need to stay here. I can find a way to hide or maybe find a way to, do whatever I need to stay here, but I still need to eat. So could you please lower? Right? We're getting to that point.
Yeah.
Right? When you're making
Yeah.
when you're making these types of trade-offs as a voter,
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
right? So, according to the poll, Latino voters were clear about what specific economic relief they were seeking. And now look at these titles, like these line items, and then look at what's being done with the tariffs and everything. And wonder if these things are coming. Lowering the cost of food and groceries. Well, if you like your morning coffee, that's gone up 50%
Yeah, because tariffs.
from Brazil. Cutting taxes for the working and middle class. Yes, there is going to be a tax cut because, as Mr. Grizzly said, and as Mike Pence acknowledges, but that and more is going to be taken away by the higher cost of everything because he
Mhm.
decided to wage an economic war on 200 fronts all at once, which nobody ever advises. But he's smarter than everybody else, so he's doing it. Increasing paying benefits, 7% want that. Well, if companies can't plan for the future and companies are having less people buy their stuff because people have less disposable income, because
Yeah.
then they don't have the money to actually give you the increased wages that you deserve. If your wages were going to increase 2.5%, they might increase only 1.6% now, if at all. And you might have to be doing extra work because the extra 3 or 4 staff that they were going to bring in over the course of the year to try and lighten the workload, well, they can't afford them now.
Yeah. So now you're suffering.
Yeah. Expanding access to affordable healthcare. There are already clinics that are closing because of the planned cuts to Medicaid. Because all those people where you live, particularly if you live in Republican counties, rural counties, because there's a lot of people among their neighbors who use Medicare. And since a lot of them are going to be losing a certain amount, the clinics in the areas can no longer stay open, which means though you voted for this guy and you didn't want to lose your clinic or your local hospital, congratulations, you have, because you wanted those people to suffer. But that was the base that was keeping the hospital open.
And
The one
you're
you use.
suffering now too.
Yeah.
Well,
So, but that's what, like, these are all the things that they say they want,
mhm.
right? And we're not even a full. Are we a full? No, God, I don't even.
It's a two-party system. It's a joke.
I know, but it's like we're not even through the first full year of him yet, are we? God damn.
Yeah.
So,
No, we're what, 8 months in? 9
Yeah.
months in? 8
so
months. What am I
yeah,
saying?
exactly. And you already have 1 in 5 of the Latino voters, 1 in 5 of that 48%
Mhm.
that voted for him that are saying, I am definitely not going to vote Republican again.
Well,
That's going to, no wonder they're trying to gerrymander the map in Texas.
they have to. They have no choice. They have no choice.
And it's not like they're making fans with independents at the moment.
Well, I got into it the other day with somebody who insisted that Elections Canada gerrymandered the Nepean Carleton riding and added more Liberals to it. And I'm like, okay, first off, gerrymandering is not a thing in Canada. It does not exist in this country. Elections Canada redraws riding maps when the
Every 10
population grows. They do it.
Census.
They look at it every few years and go, okay, we need to expand this riding because that, whatever.
Yeah,
And
every 10 years after the census numbers come out.
right. And in the case of Nepean Carleton, they actually enlarged the riding in favor of Pierre Poilievre and
Yes.
added more conservatives to the riding.
Because it expanded in the direction of more rural.
Number one. And number two, I didn't make that up. I heard that directly from it was on Power and Politics
Mhm.
from a former conservative campaign manager who
Delory.
said what was his name?
I think it was Fred Delory.
Yes, it was Fred Delory.
Yep.
Thank you. Who said this favors Pierre Poilievre. It's a larger conservative riding now, and he
Yep.
still lost.
Yep.
So I said, first off, gerrymandering is not a thing in Canada. Number one. Number two, Elections Canada redraws periodically as required. And number three, it did it in his favor, and he lost. He
Yep.
lost because he didn't do anything for his constituents and hasn't for a decade. In the last 3 years, all he's done is parade around the country trying to become elected prime minister, which again is not a position you can ever run for in this country. Sorry, I get wound up about that because he continues to say, I want to be the next prime minister. I'm like,
He
okay,
never
that's fine.
removed it from his Twitter feed the entire time he was campaigning in Battle River Crowfoot.
No kidding. No kidding. And you saw the shenanigans that took place with the write-in ballot. Write the name like this, Pierre Poilievre. Like, excuse me? I don't think that's allowed, actually. And then they put in very fine font in the same color as the background.
Yes.
A slightly different shade, paid for by the Conservative Party of Canada. I'm like,
Yep. Yep. The too cute by half thing. And with him, I would be very careful about that type of thing because he does have a compliance.
Right. He does have a compliance agreement.
Which, for those who are not familiar, is another fancy term in electoral law for deferred prosecution agreement.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, he should actually have done prison time, but he worked out an agreement with them. Now, something else I want to share with you.
I don't know if he would have done prison time for those infractions.
Well, you're right. Probably not.
But
he might
have.
But
he would have a record.
He'd have a record. He'd never get his security clearance, which means he could never become prime minister. Well, in my books, if you can't pass clearance, I don't think you have the right to be in that position.
No. And it seems to me that if you're the type of person that does funny business with an election so much that you wind up with a compliance order, probably you shouldn't be prime minister.
Yeah, I don't think you should be prime minister or leader of a party or even in politics anymore. That's just me, though. That's just me.
My standards might be too high for 2025.
I want to share one other clip with you because this goes back to. I'm going to bring it back to Trump, and we went on about Poilievre for a bit because he's Maple MAGA, and there's no denying that he's Maple MAGA. But I want to show this, and I'm going to bring it back to Trump, but in a very roundabout, somewhat abstract way. This is a clip. I don't believe you've seen this. I saw this the other day, and I was like, "Yeah, I've been trying to say this, but this man said it perfectly." And it's the clip's not long. It's like I think it's less than 3 minutes. Yeah, I saw it on the gram. I have it on my Facebook. I'm going to share it with everybody right now. Let me just bring it up here. We'll bring it up, and then I'll hit play. And we'll let me just change the comment. There we go. This is all we need because it's in this format. Watch this. It is going to. it's going to enlighten a few people, I think.
Can't black people just get over it? Like, slavery was a long time ago. All right? Why can't they just move on? Well, this is sort of precious coming from people who set off fireworks every July 4th. Because that's some old shit too, right? Like Independence Day, that didn't happen last week, right? We didn't break away from the British last Thursday. That's some old shit. But we're still celebrating that. So when it's stuff that makes us feel good, we love it. When it's stuff that makes us feel better than others, superior, like we're the greatest people in the greatest country ever struck off from the forehead of God Almighty, oh, we'll remember that forever. We just don't like the stuff that brings us up a little short, makes us look a little less than superior, maybe not quite as good as we'd like to believe. If you don't understand why the past affects the present, particularly around issues like enslavement, putting aside the inheritance of wealth and the lack thereof, part of which is certainly an explanation for why currently the median white wealth is 15 times the median African-American wealth and 11 to 12 times the median Latino wealth. Certainly that has something to do with history, who had access to resources and who didn't. But putting aside that, let's just understand something. The only reason Donald Trump is president right now is because of a little thing called the Electoral College, which was put in place by folks. See, we got this revisionist history that we've been spinning for the last couple of months about the Electoral College. Oh, it was put in there to prevent tyranny. For real, you think? Do you really think that? Because I don't think that. Right? That might have been one of the things that folks were concerned about, but it was also put in because folks like the folks in Virginia, in the bigger slaveholding states, right, didn't want direct democracy or anything even remotely like it because it would have hurt them because so much of their population was not enfranchised, right? So much of their population in some areas, 40% or over half of the people in some of those slaveholding states were what? Disenfranchised, counted as 3/5 of a human being, not considered people. And if you had anything remotely resembling direct democracy, those states would have been harmed by that. So in fact, the Electoral College was in part a compromise with slaveholding states, states who were dependent upon enslavement as a mechanism of economic development so as to improve their political position vis-a-vis non-slaveholding states. Mm-hmm. So if you don't understand how slavery, because this is the point, right? Even if you don't think racism was key to Donald Trump's own campaign, which, suggests to me that you might have been asleep for the last several months, even if you believe that, understand that racism in the 1700s, white supremacy embedded in the structure of the country at the founding of the country is most definitely implicated in his election because without the obeisance to the Electoral College, without that compromise, we know he would not be president right now. So that is why we have to think about the past, and that is why the past affects the present. See,
mm-hmm. And again, no lies detected.
Not a single one. Not a single one. Again, he summed it up in a way I wish I could. I could say it with as much passion, but I couldn't come up with it in such a succinct manner.
Right.
I saw another video the other day. I don't have it with me, but I'll try and dig it up for you and send it to you at some point, where it was the same gentleman talking about why they don't have universal health care in the United States of America.
Mm.
Do you know why that is?
Why is that?
Racism.
No way.
Yeah, you see, us white, well-to-do and middle-class people can't allow those who we feel are beneath us to access health care. Because if they have health care, they'll be able to have healthy children and healthy families. And you see where I'm going with this. They'll be able to eventually, maybe,
take over.
And that's completely the root of it all. Why do you think they're banning abortion? So that they can have more white babies.
Oh, yes.
And why do you think they won't provide health care services to the folks who aren't well-to-do?
Because more of them are not white and they want fewer non-white babies.
Less non-white babies. Fewer. Yeah, you said it. Sorry, I got my brain sometimes.
That's okay.
Yeah, you're right. That's what it was. And I can't remember if it was the same gentleman or not. This is a professor. But it was summed up in like a 3-minute clip. And I'm like, now, of course, you'll get some pundit somewhere who will argue, well, I'm like, If you want to get and pick apart every little thing, sure. But here's the thing: the folks who say these things are well researched.
Mhm.
And they will come out and hit back with you. And it will be that scene from Good Will Hunting when he's in the bar.
Mm.
You know the scene I'm talking
Mhm,
about.
mhm. Yes, I do. Yes, I
And
do.
he goes, here's the thing. 20 years from now, you realize you dropped $150,000 on an education that you could have got for $1.50 in late fees at the public library. It's one of my favorite movies of all time because it's so well written, it's so well done, and I can't believe it's almost 30 years old.
Yeah, indeed. But no, I like what you say there because that professor did find a way to make the point about hereditary rights and how the past does impact the future. Um,
Why can't you
like
get
this
over it?
but within a yeah, putting it in like in a today vernacular context, but making that argument like frequently when I hear this argument being made, yes, it's an argument that's like developed over 10, 12 minutes, 8
Mhm.
minutes. Like, it was very like this, and this was just like zoom right into the point, make it hit, and then walk out. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is very well done.
That was a 3-minute video clip.
Yep.
And
He
that's what
packed a lot of
government said.
content.
Yeah, in 3 minutes. That's 3 minutes. I don't know how long the actual entire speech was, but a 3-minute clip knocks it out of the damn park.
Yep.
Right?
Indeed. Yep.
Why can't you get over it? Really? Why can't you? Why are you still celebrating July 4th?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, good point.
Yeah. All right. And did you have something else, sir? I believe you had 3 things.
There was I wanted to, well, we started to touch on Pierre Poilievre.
Yes.
But I was gonna go into the Greenland thing.
Mm.
I don't know if you've read about how the ambassador from Greenland.
Yes.
You know about this then? So
Yes.
he's calling in people to find out that the Trump organization administration is trying to influence individuals in the government and individuals in the know and influential people to try and get them to basically hand over their country to him is what it boils down to.
Yep.
Effectively. I had the clip. I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah.
See if I can pull it up here.
But this is
Here it is. Denmark has summoned the
Yeah.
U.S. diplomat after reports the U.S. were illegally conducting covert influence operations in Greenland. This is how the U.S. treats an ally.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that are looking at this and says, bet you that's happening right now in Canada.
Mm-hmm. Oh, again. Well, I believe it's happening in Alberta. Didn't he offer them $500 million or something like that?
Well, I don't know who did, but the people within the administration, allegedly, according to Black Cowboy Hat or whatever his name is, yeah, said like $500 million in $500 million in loans and stuff like that would be made available. Like this, and we had a good laugh over that because like that would be enough to start you off as an independent sovereign country that is landlocked and has no military or diplomatic corps.
Yeah, you would become a vassal state very freaking quickly.
And like not even like a gift of 500 million, like loans.
It's a loan. So you have to pay it back. Now your oil is ours.
So yeah, this thing with Greenland and got so bad that the ambassador got called in for a meeting. This in the diplomatic world, being called in for a meeting
It's not good. That's
no,
very
it's really not good. It's a BFD. It's a
Yeah,
really big
it
deal.
is. Yeah.
For it to happen between allies,
Yeah.
even more so.
What?
Well, according to the BBC, the U.S. representative went, and the U.S. has told Denmark to calm down. Oh, yeah, that's going to work. After the top U.S. diplomat in Copenhagen was summoned over claims that Americans had been conducting covert operations in Greenland, Denmark's public broadcaster DR quoted sources as saying the aim was to infiltrate society and promote its secession from Denmark to the U.S., although it was unable to clarify who the men were working for. A White House official would not confirm an influence campaign was underway, but said, "We think the Danes need to calm down." I thought you guys didn't like Taylor Swift. Just saying. Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen said, any attempt to interfere in the internal affairs of the Kingdom of Denmark will, of course, be unacceptable. Danish intelligence warned Greenland was being targeted by, quote, various kinds of influence campaigns. A U.S. State Department spokesperson said Chargé d'Affaires Mark Stroh had met with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, adding he had had, quote, a productive conversation that, quote, reaffirmed the strong ties between Greenland, Denmark, and the U.S. The spokesperson could not comment on, quote, the actions of private U.S. citizens in Greenland, but said the U.S. has always respected the right of people of Greenland to, quote, determine their own future. U.S. President Trump has said several times
Pull
he
this
wa-
leg and it plays jingle bells. Yeah.
Exactly. U.S. President has said several times he wants to annex Greenland, a semi-autonomous part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and Vice President J.D. Vance has accused Copenhagen of underinvesting in the territory. Like that's your effing business. On a visit to Greenland a few months ago, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen warned the U.S. that, quote, you cannot annex another country. Denmark's foreign minister said in a statement to the BBC that the government was, quote, aware that foreign actors continue to show an interest in Greenland and its position in the Kingdom of Denmark. It is therefore not surprising if we experience outside attempts to influence the future of the kingdom in the time ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, none of that is good.
Yeah. Well, and what's really interesting about this is the second ambassador to be called in France as well. It just happened because the American ambassador to France is Kushner's dad, Jared's daddy.
Oh, right.
Yes. Who is, of course, Jewish. Macron recently was the first to come out, and then other nations joined him to say at the next, not sure if it's UN General Assembly or Security Council meeting, not sure which one it is. I think it's US General Assembly, that France will officially recognize the state of Palestine. And other countries have decided to do so. Well,
that's Canada.
Yes, exactly. And it seems that, again, American ambassadors are not quite understanding that their purpose is to represent the view of the United States, but not to comment on how other nations in which they are a guest are decorating their house.
Kind of like the U.S. ambassador to Canada telling us to, I'm going to
not be so nasty.
I'm going to step back.
Mean.
Just going to step back a bit.
So France's foreign ministry summoned the U.S. ambassador to the country, Charles Kushner, on Sunday after he authored a letter accusing the French government of lack of sufficient action in confronting anti-Semitism. France strongly rejected the unacceptable allegations in Kushner's letter, which the ministry said, quote, fall short of the quality of the transatlantic relationship. Ouch. Between the U.S. and France. On Monday, a French diplomatic source told CNN that the U.S. Chargé d'Affaires was summoned to the ministry's headquarters in Paris in Kushner's absence, and he was not in Paris. The source said the Chargé d'Affaires was told Kushner's letter was not acceptable either in form or substance, and it, quote, drew a conclusion that did not correspond to the reality of the resolute mobilization of France in the fight against the scourge of anti-Semitism. The U.S. diplomat was also told that the letter constituted an interference in the internal affairs of France, according to the source. Quote, the rise in anti-Semitic acts in France since October 7th, 2023 is a reality that we deplore and to which the French authorities are fully committed, given the intolerability of these acts, the French Foreign Ministry said in its earlier statement. According to a copy of the letter shared with CNN by the U.S. Embassy, Kushner said that he wrote out of, quote, deep concern for the situation in France. Quote, anti-Semitism has long scarred French life, but it has exploded since Hamas's barbaric assault on October 7th, 2023, Kushner, who is Ivanka Trump's father-in-law, wrote. Since then, pro-Hamas extremists and radical activists have waged a campaign of intimidation and violence across Europe. The letter dated for Monday, August 25th, was issued to French President Emmanuel Macron. Kushner, who was confirmed to his post in May, urged Macron to enforce hate crime laws, quote, without exception, and to take more efforts to ensure the safety of the Jewish community. Quote, In France, not a day passes without Jews assaulted in the streets, synagogues, or schools defaced, or Jewish-owned businesses vandalized, he said. Public statements haranguing Israel and gestures toward recognition of a Palestinian state emboldening extremists fuel violence and endanger Jewish life in France, Kushner wrote, in response to France and several other Western nations announcing plan to recognize the state of Palestine in September. So as Canadians, given that we are going to do that, we should also assume that that letter was written to us.
Sure.
Just saying. He also advised the French president to, quote, abandon steps that give legitimacy to Hamas and its allies, while pointing to U.S. President Donald Trump's measures in the U.S. Quote, President Trump and I have Jewish children and shared Jewish grandchildren. I know how he feels about anti-Semitism, as do all Americans, he said in the letter, referring to several Trump administration moves, including enforcing, quote, civil rights protections for Jewish students on university campuses and overseeing the deportation of Hamas sympathizers. Asked whether the Trump administration stood by Kushner's comments, State Department spokesperson Tommy Pigott told CNN on Sunday, quote, yes, we stand by his comments. Ambassador Kushner is our U.S. government representative in France and is doing a great job advancing our national interests in that role. CNN has reached out to the White House for comment. Two ambassadors within the space of a week called in because they're running their mouth about the internal affairs of the nations in which they are guests, and doing so in a manner that is rather unhelpful.
It's very, very bad. They're breaking all of the diplomatic rules. I'm not trying to do ASMR. I'm just trying to play a part here.
Yep.
This is. I'm not going to say it's unprecedented, but it's unprecedented. Like, when was the last time you've had this happen?
It's really rare. Like the one I most remember is when that Russian ambassador in Canada had the accident where
he wasn't an ambassador.
Someone?
He wasn't. No, he wasn't.
No, it wasn't an ambassador. Sorry, he was a diplomat, but not an ambassador.
Correct. Yeah, and
Exactly.
he was out of the country within like 12 hours or something.
Yeah, but he was driving drunk and hit someone with his car.
Yeah. Now, technically speaking,
Technically speaking, yes,
you can't arrest him or charge him unless. So
Russia
if he pulled out a gun and shot somebody, if he killed somebody, that there's charges for that. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but they can't claim diplomatic immunity in that instance.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't remember if the person was killed or not in that accident. And I think they were, but I think when it comes to diplomacy and diplomatic immunity, when it comes to drinking and driving incidents, it's not cut and dried there.
Yes,
it's very gray. Anyway, he was gone in like 12 hours. He was out of the country, never to be seen from again. Now, what happened to him when he got back to Russia? I don't know. I have no idea. That was long before Putin was in power. Was Gorbachev still in power at the time?
That's a good question here.
That's
that
a
was
long
back
time
in
ago.
2001, so it was after Gorbachev.
Yeah, it was after Gorbachev. Maybe I don't think Putin was in power at the time. Maybe he was. Either way, I remember thinking at the time, like, the right thing for them to do would have been to bring him in for at least questioning. At the very least, like, we wouldn't be able to hold him for any length of time. I don't know if he could have even been charged, but they just.
It would seem that the Russians did the investigation. He was expelled, but he was prosecuted in Russia.
Yes,
for having done it,
because it's an international incident. It's really bad.
Oh yes,
it's really bad. Now, how was that family compensated? I have no idea. It'll never make up for the loss of their loved one, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it was somebody died. It says fatal accident here, so indeed.
It was, yeah, okay. Yeah, I remember when it all happened. It's 24 years ago, so I'm trying to remember all the details there.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, that's But yeah, that's the one like the one that comes to mind about somebody being called in, right? It usually has to be something really,
Yeah,
really, really
really bad.
bad.
And in this instance, it's just like, what are you doing? Like,
Yes, you can't be doing that.
shut your cake hole.
Yeah, really. Jeez. Oh my God.
Bad. I gotta go, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we started later than we planned
Yep,
because
absolutely.
but I do have to run. I'm assuming you have a few other things you wanted to discuss. If you wanted
Yes.
to keep
Yes.
rolling, okay.
Okay,
So
I'll do one or two more things. Yeah.
I figured as much. I got to bail. Thanks everybody for joining. I do think about the DAMFAM every day. I do because I'll get home and I'll look at stuff and I'll read. I don't have time to watch the whole show because I go to bed very early.
Yep.
But I'll watch a bit of the show and look at the comments and see some of the chat, and it's like I miss everybody. I wish I could be there for you every day. Unfortunately, that's just not currently possible. But we had kicked around the idea of doing maybe Tuesday, Thursday, or a Monday, Wednesday, sort of 3 p.m. live 30-minute thing. We can work it out over the course of the next few days.
Or we could
Figure out
do
what
this
we can do.
regularly too.
We
or
could do
once a
this.
week.
Yeah, we could once or twice a week. We could just do a recording. I know people like the live thing, but also there's the aspect of we're still a morning show, right?
Yes.
So until unless we decide to ever move away from that, this works for me too. But yeah, anyway, I do miss everybody. I wish I could be there for you every day, but got to earn a living because I'm not getting younger and I have bills to pay. And I don't want to be a ward of the state. I'd like to be able to support myself as I get older. And I appreciate everybody who has been helping to support our channel. The people who have subscribed, the new subscribers, the people who have joined, become members, the folks who have sent money to us through coffee and emailed us money directly. Thank all of you. It really helps because despite the fact that I figured out ways to cut back on expenses, some of the software and some of the things that we use to produce this show have suddenly gotten, go figure, more expensive. So you're helping us to keep the show running, and I greatly appreciate it. And I'm honored by it. I really am. So thank you for that. Got to go.
Before you go,
My
Mr.
words
Grizzly?
of wisdom. Pardon?
Yes, thank you. You
My-
read my mind. You read my mind.
My words of wisdom. Remember to breathe. And I know I've said this many times before, and I say it on my ASMR channel. Remember to breathe. And sometimes we forget to do it. I mean, autonomically, we do it because you have to. But remember to breathe with purpose. Remember to stop, close everything out for 15 minutes. Sometimes that's all it takes. Just shut the world out for 15 minutes. Close your eyes or just stare at something. Empty your brain as much as you possibly can and take deep, meaningful breaths because it will help you to calm down. It will help you to relax. It will help you to get to a place where you can see things through a different lens. And it's something I've learned to do every day. I do it in different manners. Usually when I'm on the train, I just zone out until like, bing, oh, there's my stop. It's not long. Some days I do it when I'm walking home, or actually usually when I'm walking to work, not walking home, because there's not a lot of traffic at 5 a.m. Sometimes I'll do it when I'm walking Lola at 4:30 in the morning. Sometimes I'll do it in the shower at 4 a.m. I'll just zone out for a couple of minutes, and then I have an alarm to remind me it's 4:15. Get out of the shower, make your coffee, get something to eat, take Lola out. It's been a very dramatic shift in my life, and everything is down to the minute, and it's organized. And this morning I woke up at 4:15, so it was like, whoa. So I didn't eat breakfast. I got to work. I was confused. My coworker looks at me and goes, "You okay?" And I go, "No, I slept into 4:15." He goes, "You slept into 4:15?" I go, "But I get up at 4." And he goes, "No, you know what? I get it. Everything is scheduled down to the minute."
Right.
I go, "It is."
Right.
I missed the 5:35 train. I had to catch the 5:45 train. Now I still get to work at 6 a.m. It's not a problem. I make it to work on time, but I'm getting in and sitting down and starting immediately.
Right.
I like to get a few minutes early so I can make a cup of coffee,
Right.
just relax and settle in. I log on at 6 and my day goes. This
Right.
morning I sat down and started immediately.
Right.
So it's amazing how 15 minutes can completely throw your day off.
Yes.
So take a few minutes out of your day, try and find a time to schedule 15, 20, 30 minutes to breathe. Focus on you for 15 or 20 or 30 minutes, whatever you can spare. Literally block it in your calendar. Set an alarm on your phone. Remind yourself, I need this time for me, and shut everyone out. Because if you don't do it, it can really wreck your day.
Yeah. That's
I
good
got to
advice.
go. Thanks for joining. Great to see you, Mr. Beaver. We will talk
Good
soon.
to see you, my friend.
I will be seeing you as soon as I can.
All right. There you go, Mr. Kits and Cubs, Mr. Grizzly, for you with a couple of things that have been on his mind this time around, and opportunities to talk about stuff going on in the world and a little bit at home. Before we sign off for the day, I do indeed have one or two things for you, Kits and Cubs. Since we've been talking about diplomatic relations and all that type of stuff, it's according to the Canadian press, it seems that we've made some headway in our relationship with India. It seems that India and Canada have named their new high commissioners today, Thursday, when we're recording this, 10 months after both countries expelled their top envoys. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand said Christopher Cooter will be Canada's new high commissioner to India. He will take on the role after 35 years as a diplomat, including postings in Israel and South Africa, as well as New Delhi 25 years ago. India's foreign ministry says it will assign its envoy to Spain, Dinesh Patnaik, to Ottawa shortly. Relations between Canada and India have been strained since Canadian police accused New Delhi of playing a role in the June 2023 assassination of Sikh activist near Vancouver. It's Harjit Singh Nijjar. The chill began to lift slightly in June when Prime Minister Mark Carney invited Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the G7 summit in Alberta, and both countries agreed to restore their top diplomats. So that news has happened. While we still have issues with the government of India, this is a good deal, because when you remove your ambassador or your high commissioners to other countries, other Commonwealth countries, we send high commissioners instead of ambassadors, but it's the same thing. When that's the case, it makes it harder to be responsive, as we saw in Iran when that plane crashed with so many Canadians and Canadian permanent residents on board. We had to go through other nations in order to be able to get any type of action or movement on that, because we didn't have an ambassador there. Stephen Harper had closed down our embassy in Iran. So it's good that we are establishing this connection here. I'm hoping that, given what's happened with the United States has slapped a 50% tariff on India as well. It was 25%, but then they added another 25% to try to deter India from buying Russian oil. So if India and United States are not in a good moment and in good posture at this moment, it is perhaps something on the chessboard that changes the calculus significantly for the government of India. And maybe it's not as much in their interest anymore to be seeing Canada as an enemy or as a punching bag, because it's got bigger fish to fry now. And it's not like we don't have oil too. So, and of course, it's not like we don't have a very strong Indian diaspora in Canada as well. So, India might be seeing a shift in their geopolitical interests on this continent as well. So, the timing of this could or could not I don't have enough information one way or another to be able to even to speculate in one direction or another. But I'm just seeing this opening, how with the pieces moving on the chessboard, and maybe there's a link in this, or maybe something about that has made this possible at this time. We will see, but at least we are in a position to be able to be talking to each other uh, at a higher diplomatic level, which is better than we had before, and which makes it so that if there are other issues that we need to address, we actually do have the team there to be able to do it. So I'm okay with this decision. You know, I wasn't necessarily too keen on the decision to have Modi at the G7, even though I do understand the economic realities. But that uh, combined, that may have opened the door that leads to this. And then when you add the fact that the United States just recently doubled the tariffs, that could have been the final accelerant to say, okay, we need to put this aside because this is a silliness, and we have to dedicate our attention to much more pressing matters. So let's hope that that is indeed the case. Another thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, kits and cubs, is based on something on the Thursday show. I referenced an issue of power and politics where a couple of the panelists were keeping things pretty real with regard to Pierre Poilievre's um, declaration or assessment of Carney having gone to Europe for basically purposes of showbiz and having signed phony deals, a declaration that did earn him the rebuke of the German ambassador to Canada on Twitter, releasing a statement indicating that a joint declaration of intent is indeed not nothing, and definitely not showbiz. Probably very strongly suggesting, but because he was too polite or too classy to say it, that Germany doesn't do show business. So we resent the implication of your suggestion. Well, in that, when it comes to that element in particular, on the industry, on the issue of episode, not issue. My word, I'm having troubles. On the episode of Power Politics to which I am referring, um, Industry Minister Melanie Joly was, and she was asked about Pierre having said this. And we have stated before on the show that, how would I put it? Let's put it this way. I remember the question that she and Chrystia Freeland were being asked, I think when it was they were in Ukraine, and I believe it was by then CBC reporter Travis Stanraj. And the question was just so insipid and stupid that they both rolled their eyes at him. And I mean, they did the answer to the question, but they kind of put him in his place just by the tone and body language that was going on while they were answering that. Well, in this moment, after JP Tasker asks her the question, there is a pause, and there's something in body language that seems to indicate that she's probably not the biggest fan of Pierre Poilievre at all. I have a feeling that she doesn't like him at all very much. And it's a moment, we've seen a moment similar to this from Mark Carney. when he asked a journalist who asked a rather bad faith question to look inside themselves, because it was the question as formulated just assumed the absolute worst of others. So I think the thing started on its own, unfortunately, before I put the screen up. So let's do that. I'm going to send this back a couple of seconds, and here we go, kids and cubs.
You've been in Europe, the Prime Minister has been in Europe, and we heard from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who has been, maybe not a huge surprise, but a bit critical of what's been signed over the last few days with the Prime Minister in particular. And he says that the one deal with Germany on critical minerals is a phony declaration that is unenforceable with no money attached, and he's coming home with nothing of consequence. What's your defense of the government's agenda over there in Europe? What do you say to Mr. Poilievre?
I think Mr. Poilievre needs to look at himself in the mirror. When he's describing what you just said, I think he's talking about his own policy.
Why do you say that?
Because ultimately, he, as the opposition leader, has been talking a lot, but with no action. Never did we hear him that we should get to 3.5% of defense budget. Never did we hear him talking about the fact that our armed forces should get a pay raise in order to recruit better and to make sure that we could support our strong men and women. Never did we hear that we should increase defense procurement to make sure that we build more in Canada. Never did we hear from him neither the fact that ultimately we need to be less reliant on the US to become closer to Europe, and that's exactly what we are doing. And never did we hear him about also everything that is linked to our airspace sector and F-35s. So I could go on and on and on, but I think we have not a lot of time for this interview.
I want to start where we ended with the Canada-US relationship. In March.
So, yeah, she is not impressed with him at all, and definitely called out the game here. It is true, indeed, that if we're talking about somebody who's just doing show business and coming up with empty statements and declarations, it's Pierre. So, yeah, the sort of like the stop and the right. You can tell that everything about that is signifying is that this man is exhausting and not serious, clearly. The other clips that I wanted to show you came from the panel discussion afterwards. And in this one, because in these panel discussions, there's a liberal representative, there is a conservative representative, and there is an NDP representative, and not necessarily MPs, but either pundits or strategists or whatnot that are called to give their opinions and give their assessments. And these try to be less partisan. In this case, in the two clips I want to show you, I want you to pay attention to the answers in particular by conservative pundit Tim Powers when speaking about what Pierre is doing and what Pierre is saying here. Now, and also about like the realities of what's going on the ground in certain instances. So, for example, in this first clip, we will be talking about the United States and, all the people that are making statements of fact, like they know what's gone in the room and it can transpire. They know what we've conceded, what we've got nothing for it, all this kind of stuff, right? They say what they want to be true as if it was a fact, when the truth is that we just cannot know. So, in this particular instance, we'll see the comment of Tim Powers among the other comments. And again, you wouldn't expect, given the way that the game is being played in recent times, in recent years, that it would be the conservative on a panel that would not stand by the position that the leader of the Conservative Party is trying to put forward. But in this case, it is precisely what happens. So please, interventions are good, and there's a bit of a a reality check and good content in all of them. But it's again, it's the house from which the call is coming. That's particularly interesting here.
U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc is leaving Washington earlier than planned. He was supposed to be there until Thursday. That's not happening at this point. What's your take? Is that a bad sign that he's leaving early after meeting with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick yesterday?
Well, I think it's pretty hard to read into this at all. It could be that they advanced the agenda faster than they thought it would. It could be that, that the U.S. administration is distracted on something else. And so, I don't think that the one thing I would say is he didn't leave in a huff. He didn't leave abruptly. It was just a bit of a shortened trip. So I'm going to remain positive that things progressed. I think we all know that ultimately the president has to figure out what he wants to do in terms of Canada. And ultimately, it's going to be him deciding what kind of deal we're going to strike and when it's going to be, because that's just the way he's doing business with absolutely everybody, and Canada is no exception.
Yeah, Tim.
So,
go ahead.
No, I was just that I don't think that Minister LeBlanc is an incredibly even-keeled person who doesn't get ruffled in any way, and he certainly would never kind of do anything discourteous to his hosts. And so I'm sure he finished his business and decided it was more productive to leave at that point.
Yeah, Tim, it's not necessarily all bad news that he left, because a source was telling us that the meeting was positive that they had yesterday. It ended with, I like this one, prudent optimism. That's how they're characterizing
very
it.
Canadian. It must have been a Canadian source.
They're coming up with all these new euphemisms for how well things go. Prudent optimism. And they're saying that there's some technical work that has to be done now between the two sides, and it doesn't make sense necessarily to have another in-person meeting between Lutnick and LeBlanc. What's your read on this early departure?
And Dominic LeBlanc will get a King Charles Coronation Medal for spending that much time with Robert Lutnick as well, or Howard Lutnick, excuse me. Look, I'm with Michelle on this. Like, who knows, right? We don't really know where things are. Whether he stayed an extra 6 hours or he left 6 hours earlier, it probably in the greater scheme of things doesn't mean much. I tell you though, JP, what is interesting, and I've seen it from one source, that being Post Media. There seems to be somebody pushing out a story that Ambassador Hillman, who you've had on this program, who I think people view as eminently qualified because of her past involvement with the administration, could be a hurdle here. I don't know if that's nonsense, a distraction, or not. But it's interesting that, again, personality is rearing its head in this discussion, because you will remember the fire-breathing criticism that the president had of the former trade minister and deputy prime minister Chrystia Freeland. Again, we're starting to see some of this pop up again. From where, from what sources, I don't know, but all I would say to that is it does seem to be, fairly or unfairly, that personality matters in this. I think in Dominic LeBlanc, to be fair to Dom, he is of the right disposition from the cabinet side. I don't know if Ambassador Hillman is rightly being targeted or not, but somebody's doing it. Be fascinating to find out why.
At least that vitriol's not being directed at Prime Minister Carney, though, from the president, right? That's a plus. I mean, what was the last thing we heard from Trump? Carney's a nice guy. They're going to get
No, it's nice. It was nice.
Yes. Jordan, what do you make of this early departure? Do you think we should read the tea leaves on this one, or is it just meh? It is what it is.
I think it's really tough to read the tea leaves, but I would say I think on the scale of positive statements, I guess prudent optimism falls somewhat under constructive. So maybe,
yes.
I think it's interesting to see, because these readouts are now so carefully attuned in terms of what's happened. Look, I think that the challenge for the Carney government on this is that the buck and the decision making clearly starts and ends on Donald Trump's desk. And he is so unpredictable and so mercurial. The talks could be progressing very well with Litnick, and in the end, that may not make much of a difference. That's a real challenge in these negotiations. The other thing is that it's been 5 days now since Canada unilaterally removed a number of the counter tariffs that we had put in place in an attempt to deal with some of the things that the U.S. has said are irritants. But of course, as Tim has brought up, there's always now new other irritants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge for the Carney government is that there's now been a number of decisions that have been made that have clearly been made in an attempt to offer a give to the U.S. government to advance these talks, but there doesn't seem to be any advance. So the challenge is now, has there been too much give? Have we lost leverage? Or are they going to be able to show some progress? So I think that's really what we should be watching for in the next few days.
Yeah, at some point they have to deliver something too, right? I mean, there has to be some goodwill shown.
All right. So in there, lots of good elements, right? If talks end early, we often think of it as a bad thing, that there was some type of thing that went terrible, but it could also be that either things were extremely efficient and there's no need to talk more, so you didn't need to use up all the time, or as I mentioned, the other government is distracted with other things, and well, there's plenty going on in the world with which the United States can be distracted at the current moment. So all of these things are happening, but as we got a little more information, it seems that they're at the point where everything that they've discussed now requires some technical work to be done, and that's going to be happening in the meantime. And then when that's done, I guess they get to meet again. So this does seem to be a positive development in the negotiations. But as the last panelist just mentioned, almost doesn't matter how well the conversation goes with Mr. Lutnick, because the question is, does he have the president's ear? And based on what we've seen before so far, he doesn't particularly. He has it more than Ambassador Fuckface does, because Ambassador Fuckface isn't even in the room. But according to himself, based on a pretty disastrous interview he gave to a CBC. But Lutnick is in the room. So, clearly he might have it a little bit more, but we've seen the president undercut his previous statements many times as well, and he's become much more cautious in what he advances as a result. So also the overall assessment of Dominique Leblanc as being the person that is very capable and that has the correct temperament and disposition for this type of negotiation, particularly with these types of characters. It's one of the reasons he was a particularly good Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs as well during this during the last decade. And finally, I was taking some notes there. Yes, and finally, also the fact mentioned by the last panelist about doesn't matter how many concessions that you make, because it seems that the game is that there will always be some new irritant being raised along the way in order to keep this going. Particularly, again, if you are of the persuasion, as I am, that Trump doesn't really want a deal. He just wants a pretext to keep other players on the back foot, because that's what he gets off on. The second part of this has to deal with the issue of the Prime Minister's trip to Europe, and Pierre, again, having made those comments about the phony deal and it not amounting to much. So again, the three will comment, and again, a pretty decent lack of partisanship in all of the comments, and you get some information and some perspective that you may not be getting through the quick 2 to 3 minute treatments on the evening news. So I'm going to bring this to you over here, and again, make sure that you can see it. There we go. And here's the clip.
Michelle, let's talk about the Prime Minister's European swing. Let's pivot to that. You heard the opening clip there from Pierre Poilievre. He says that Carney accomplished very little with this trip. The government, you've heard them too. They're saying, well, at least we're opening up new trading relationships. At least we're having those conversations. What's your assessment of this Euro swing?
Well, he's doing what he said he was going to do. And what actually Canadians expect him to do. We need to broaden our alliances. We need to strengthen what we're doing with Europe, and we need new markets for our goods. And so I'm not sure if Pierre Poilievre has just never been party to a deal, but these things aren't done in a week. They aren't done in 10 days, and they certainly aren't done in 24 hours when you kind of touch down into a country. It takes time, and it also takes a lot of political runway as you build those relationships out to be able to come up with these kinds of agreements. And I think that Mark Carney, since his first days in office, literally his first days in office, has very much said, listen, I'm looking to Europe as new markets. I'm looking to them as allies that we can count on. And when we're talking about retooling the Canadian economy to try and get through this crisis and take our dependence off the United States, we have to look somewhere else. And Europe is a market of 460 million people, about the same size as the United States. And so it sure looks like somewhere that we would want to get more Canadian goods sold over there.
Yeah, Tim, Pierre Poilievre was saying there's nothing done in 170 days. And I thought, well, 170 days isn't that long, really. I mean, like, I could, if it was like 1,700 days, maybe there's a point to be made. But is there something to be said for Poilievre's point that Carney's, swanning around Europe or whatever he described it as, and he's coming back with not very much to show for it? There's talk about enhanced collaboration, encourage mutually beneficial strategic partnerships. Like, there's not a lot of meat on the bones here, right, from this European tour.
Yeah, look, Pierre Poilievre is doing what opposition leaders are supposed to do, right? He's building a narrative that has worked for the Conservatives before of how the Liberals are, elites who like to jet to Europe. So he's going over ground that's been well treaded before. Sure. He doesn't have much else to go after right now. It's important for him to do that, I think he would think politically over time. So that when he does face Mark Carney in an election campaign, he will go back to the line, he's just like every other Liberal. I would say, JP, the most fascinating thing of this European trip is how Mark Carney has taken his motorcade and driven all over Justin Trudeau's previous views on LNG. And you're not going to hear Pierre applaud him for that, though I suspect they share a perspective there that Mark Carney is big on LNG, big on the opportunities that many in the East Coast see on LNG, whereas Justin Trudeau, I believe it was 2 years ago or so, said there wasn't a business case for it. That's a big deal. That's a big change by Canada. And to be fair to the current Prime Minister, if you're a business leader, a proponent, you're looking at that saying, all right, well, 2 years ago, one guy said not a chance. Now there's a guy saying a chance. What do I do? So that's an area where Pierre does have to be a little bit careful as somebody who, to be fair to him, has been a proponent of the LNG industry. So he's got to watch the opportune politicking with the reality of business groupthink.
Yeah, Jordan, actually, Tim Hodgson, the Natural Resources Minister, was also quoted in a Bloomberg report today talking about the potential for LNG. And he's saying, unlike the previous Canadian government, that closed the door to LNG exports, Prime Minister Carney's government has opened it. There's definitely been a shift on natural resources in particular. I had the Polish ambassador on this week. I had the German ambassador on this week, and both kind of smirked when I asked about LNG and Trudeau's past comments on that. No business case. Really? No business case? We're taking tens of millions of tons of it from the U.S. and Qatar. Canada's being left out. So that is certainly one productive development out of this European swing, is that there's been a shift in policy on LNG. We can say that for sure.
Yeah, I think that's significant. And I just want to disclose that I work with a German political foundation that's independent and does no government relations work either here or in Germany. But I would say the other thing that's really significant here is that, of course, the context has also changed. It's really important to remember that when Chancellor Scholz came in 2022 to meet with Prime Minister Trudeau, and they put their focus on green hydrogen instead of LNG, there was no trade war with the U.S. There was no pressing need for us to really consider diversifying where we were sending our exports. And of course, we didn't even at that time have an operational LNG project going to Asia. Those things have all changed. And now the national conversation about the infrastructure that would be necessary to make LNG exports to Europe a possibility, like investments in the Port of Churchill, all of a sudden there is potentially a business case for that. So I think in complete fairness, things have shifted, but it's absolutely correct. There's a ton of interest in Germany and in Europe more broadly in Canada's products, not just LNG, but also critical minerals. Yeah. And I think that, you know, for the Canadian government, this is the smart kind of partnership. This is a good way to diversify our trade relationships. And these are the countries we want to be trading more with.
Michelle?
I would just add that, you know, in addition to that, Europe is coming off of using Russian oil. And so they also have to be looking for new markets. And I think I should also just, you know, say Prime Minister Trudeau's government was the one that actually granted the permits to allow for the LNG company off the West Coast to actually get into production. Very recently, we sent our first shipments. It was one of the biggest projects that we worked on in BC with the Trudeau government, so I have to give them credit for that. It didn't go through under Stephen Harper, though I acknowledge, you know, certainly Prime Minister Trudeau was not did not see at that time any market in going to Europe. So.
Tim, what do you think is the next step here? I mean, we see Joly in Germany, we see Carney in Germany, we see Sidhu, the international trade minister in South America, trying to work on this deal with Mercosur. Can we broker some deals to make up for the lost U.S. business? I mean, I was looking at some of the export data, and it really has dropped a lot to the U.S. And yes, there's been an uptick to other markets, but it's not nearly as much as what we've lost to the Americans. Do you have any faith in this effort to expand our markets? Is it something we can actually do this time?
Yeah, but you're not going to put it on hyperspeed. You know, you got to do the work. You got to do the legwork, and you got to have others believe you're prepared to be a partner. And we can't abandon the U.S. I mean, I think we do still have to accept the reality that relationship, regardless of the current challenges with the president, is our most important economic relationship. That's why it was fascinating to watch the Prime Minister change his language a little bit last week and talk about, oh, we're only getting tariffed at 5.8%. Yeah. That's not a bad deal. We haven't heard anybody say ultimate free trade is the goal now. It's lower tariffs. And that may be the reality. And the Prime Minister is going to need to continue to explain to Canadians why, even if we do get stuck with tariffs, that's the case. Yep, we should be diversifying opportunities in Europe, but it's going to take us time. Maybe we see the first one. The submarines seem like a real live piece of economic opportunity that may signal that some of the work that the Prime Minister and others are doing in Europe is working.
Quick final word to you, Jordan.
Well, I think what matters now is the follow-up on this. This isn't the first time there have been some really positive tentative agreements in Europe, but now we have to fill the gap with actually putting those into place. And that means using some of the unused capacity within CETA. And that means supporting Canadian businesses who want to export to Europe and making that easier for them to. So that's going to be a challenge for the government going forward, is to turn those agreements into actually delivering. And I think in particular politically, one of the biggest things is the concern that Canadians are having about the economy, about jobs, their community, connecting those two together, connecting what's happening overseas with actually improving people's conditions here at home. They have to do that this fall.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thanks so much to the Power Panel, Michelle.
All right, kits and cubs. So a lot of interesting content in that bit again. You know, Tim Powers keeping it very real there. But we have Michelle Cardario, who's talking about, and these are lots of concepts that we've talked about on the show already, but broadening our economic partnership and our economic reach and all the things that entails, and that it doesn't happen overnight, and that, you know, you have to put in some work, you have to develop some relationships, and, you know, go into the countries, knock on the doors. It's not just good enough to say we have a free trade agreement. Governments, right, sign joint declarations of intent to create the conditions for negotiations to happen, but the negotiations happen between corporations and the government, right? It's not the government of Germany that's going to determine, well, you're making a deal with this corporation for this month, right? So there are steps you have to take. There's groundwork that you have to do. And as Tim Powers, mentioned it in his last decision, not his last decision, his last intervention, when he said, you got to do the work, you got to do the legwork. So Pierre Poilievre's commentary over and over again does not acknowledge the fact that you got to do some legwork, that you can just say, I'm going to make us an energy superpower, and boom, you are. That it doesn't involve coming to agreements with other people, and it doesn't coming to agreements with other people is more difficult than just calling them up on the phone and say, hey, you know what, we haven't really done any business and you don't know us, but we have an offer for you. You want to take it? Great, we have a deal. Right? There's more that goes into it than that. So when you tie that with Melanie Joly's comment, right, and hear the words that that they're saying here, you got to do the legwork, you got to do the work. These things take time. Right? These are all things that Pierre does not accept. He doesn't accept that things take time. Doesn't accept that you got to do some work, right? He likes the lazy approach. He would rather just come out and say that Carney is worse than Trudeau and it's all terrible, without actually looking to make the case based on real arguments. It's just look at everything. Everything's worse. It's all his fault. That's the laziest type of rhetoric, right? You don't need a room full of strategists to come up with that. I mean, unless your room full of strategists are saying, like, there's no way that you're going to win on merits or facts, so you just got to smear like this. And, people will get tired of the economic situation before these times, all these changes have time to take hold and start yielding benefits. So even though all the groundwork will be done frantically over 2 or 3 years, the benefits won't completely have rolled in yet, and people will get tired. And you'll be able to, just smear, saying, how come it isn't done yet? How come it isn't done yet? Win on that flank. And then if you continue the policies that have been put in place, because when they finally do start showing fruit, well, you will happen to be the prime minister at the time, and you can take credit for it and say you did it, even though you had nothing to do with it. You actually tried to sabotage it, hold it back. Right? That's the plan at the moment. Just trash them, trash them, trash them, trash them, because the results won't come fast enough, won't come before the people get tired. That's the extent of the strategy. So when that's the extent of your strategy, then you don't have to care that the points are right. You just have to care that the points are negative and consistent and drive a narrative. The big genius businessman said that promised he could handle Trump. Well, look at us now. Gee, some handling, some genius. But it's always from a place of snark and punching down and smarm. Right? It's not constructive. It's not helpful. It doesn't come with any solutions. Stop doing what you're doing and implement our plan instead. We're willing to work with anybody to implement our plan. It's not a serious position, not when you haven't been chosen to put your plan in place. Right? Except it's just not serious. Then there we have, I'm just going to have to check my notes here. Tim Powers, then again, talking about the strategy, how it's well-worn, it's already used, but Pierre doesn't really have much else to go on because there are no results yet from what things, there are results in terms of things are moving ahead to the next stage and whatnot, but there isn't exactly a factory built or a product, I can't even say that there isn't more products coming to market, because there are more products to market, as JP Tasker mentioned in that clip. But so there is some change happening, but not on the scale, right? So early in the game that somebody can point to and go, wow, that really worked. So he doesn't have much options, because if there were a project that were put in place and it didn't yield the benefits that were promised or whatnot, he could point to that and and have a legitimate saying, like, they're doing it wrong, but he doesn't. So all he has is, it's never going to work. It's It's never going to work. They're not going to do it. He's got nothing to offer. It's not real yet until it is. And then when it is, well, it's going to be the worst thing ever, right? So that's pretty much the PR playbook here. They also mention when it comes to the case for LNG, how the case is changing. And we talked about this a little bit on the show, but there are more elements as well in this response when they were talking about the changes that are being made to ports. Well, if in order to have an LNG industry, you need to make changes to ports, but the only reason you need to make a change to a port is because you're going to have LNG to put out of it X number of years from now. That's probably not an interesting business case. But if the port is expanding because we're now diversifying trade with Europe, we're going to be doing more trade with some Asian nations, we're going to be doing more trade with the Mercosur nations, we're going to be doing more seaport to seaport trade directly with Mexico rather than going above land by truck or by train. Well, all of a sudden, we have many other reasons to expand those seaports than just LNG. So that changes the business case for expanding the seaports. And if those seaports already do exist or they're already being modified, then what's the big deal in modifying it so it could have larger capacity? So in other words, it's one of these moments where you ask yourself, do you buy the color TV in advance because you know they are working on color movies and you will be able to be the first to see them when they show them on TV because you all have already bought the color TV? Or will you wait until they actually invent the color movies first and then later on go and buy the TV? So this would be a case of buying the TV first before the movie is made, right? So if those ports are going to be expanded anyway because we are going to have more trade with other nations than the United States, then if we expand it for the potential of more LNG trade while we're at it, well, once they exist, it does make the case for LNG more reasonable. If we are already going to do a deep water port in Churchill for a whole bunch of other reasons, then that exists. It's in the plan, so it makes the case. The other thing for LNG is based on what Minister Hodgson said recently. He had delivered an address with regard to this and said at a news conference wrapping up a trip to Berlin, because when Prime Minister Carney left Berlin to head on off to Riga, Latvia, Tim Hodgson remained in Berlin an extra day. And so at a news conference wrapping up his trip to Berlin, Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson said German companies have told him that they are interested in Canadian liquefied natural gas, and his government wants to meet that demand, a reversal from the Liberals under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And I don't think that Justin Trudeau didn't want to meet the demand, right? But given that it would have meant all the changes to ports, all the changes to other infrastructure that are needed, and then getting the social license, which would have been more difficult pre-Trump, creating an existential threat. And you're adding it all together, and by the time the environmental permits and by the time it gets built, it's possible that a lot of these nations have sourced the energy that they need from other places by that point, and there's no business case. But today, all those things have changed. All those dynamics are different. Quote, the previous government made its decision based on the situation at the time. What we've been elected to do is respond to the realities today, taking into account what Canadians expect of us. And I would say that the realities today are quite different than they were 2 or 3 years ago, which was the case that the last panelist in that interview clip I showed was making. He did not name the German companies, but told journalists that many buyers are prepared to trade the Canadian fossil fuel on the international market. Quote, they can take advantage of our production on the West Coast to supply German needs in the Atlantic, Hodgson said. 3 years ago, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine plunged Europe into the worst energy crisis since the 1970s, and Germany faced the hardest energy shock in generations. He said the current economic face-off with U.S. President Donald Trump is forcing Canada to build a new economic and security relationship, not only with the U.S., but with our allies around the world. At a meeting with former German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in August 2022, Trudeau said a challenge around LNG was, quote, the amount of investment required, as I was mentioned, and that there has never been a strong business case for exportation to Germany. Well, after the invasion of Ukraine, a lot of that has changed. Hodgson said the Major Projects Office, a key component of the Liberal C5 legislation meant to fast-track project approvals, will be announced by the end of the week. The office is meant to coordinate with provincial and territorial counterparts to figure out, among other responsibilities, which jurisdiction would determine the environmental impact of a given major project. So by the time you're listening to this, it seems that that office will officially be in existence. Quote, I am hopeful you will be quite pleased on Thursday or Friday with the announcement of the launch of the Major Offices project, the leadership of the Major Projects Office, and the plans for it, he said. On Wednesday, Prime Minister Mark Carney had hinted a list of federally approved major projects would be released in the next 2 weeks and include expansions of the Port of Montreal and the Port of Churchill in northern Manitoba, the latter specifically focused on LNG exports. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, however, criticized the government for being slow in launching the promised projects, blah, 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 from him. The other element that makes the case for LNG to Europe much more attractive today than it was a couple of years ago is all this talk about AI data centers. All the advanced countries want some, and as we learned on our show through other sources, based on what Premier Houston in Nova Scotia wants to do with the Wind West project that he's got as part of the Eastern Energy Partnership conglomerate of projects, or I'm not sure I should say conglomerate, but collection of projects in that case. We learned in that research and looking through that it takes about 1 gigawatt of energy per AI data center. That creates the need for natural gas. So there is now a whole new burgeoning industry that requires high amounts of energy in order to sustain itself. And it's not an industry that's going away. It's an industry that's going to proliferate for the foreseeable future. And most developed countries really want to get into it. So now there's a whole new market for the liquefied natural gas as well. So there's lots of reasons why the business case has changed recently. In those discussions, JP Tasker was mentioning how trade with the United States is dropping off faster than trade with other nations is increasing. That is indeed true. But again, we're just getting started, right? At some point, that's going to pick up as we talk to more nations, sign more deals, establish more relationships, become more entrenched in supply chains in other nations. This will change over time, right? So at the beginning, the numbers are, it's not like, okay, if we lose for 20% from the United States, we replace 20% to the rest of the world so quickly. Like, no, of course, you've got to, again, go in and do the legwork and make the deals. But once that's done and things get rolling, it can very much be the situation that our trade with other nations that has been diverted from the United States starts to grow and starts to surpass make up for what was lost and even potentially surpass it, because the United States is a market of a certain number of million people, I'd say maybe 362 million, somewhere around there. But the European Union has 450 million. Mexico itself, I think, is a nation of 200 million people itself. You add the Mercosur nations, if it includes Brazil is a very populous nation. We have a free trade deal with Indonesia, which is the world's 4th largest populous nation. All the nations of CPTPP, which include Mexico again, so New Mexico sort of being double counted in this number, opens up a market of about 500 million people. If we start maximizing all those markets and having some deals, even if we don't maximize, if we get to like a 25% better, occupying 25% of our market potential in those markets, that might be enough to offset, with lots of room to grow still yet. So, it's going to start off slowly, but at some point it is going to ramp up. And given that there are so many other more people in all of these markets combined than the United States, we do have the potential, by looking at the rest of the world, to compensate for what we would lose from the United States. But again, it is going to take time, lots of time. But it is possible. The math is very, very possible and reasonable. The final thing that we heard in one of those answers was about some submarines. And it seems that Canada has announced that we are moving to the next step in submarine procurement, according to a Government Canada press release. On August 26th, it says, through Canada's defense policy, Our North Strong and Free, the Government of Canada is providing members of the Royal Canadian Navy with the equipment they need to keep Canadians safe and maintain current and future operational readiness. Canada has the longest coastline in the world, and it is essential that the Royal Canadian Navy be equipped with superior underwater surveillance capability to protect our country's security and Arctic sovereignty. The Royal Canadian Navy requires a new submarine fleet that will be deployable in the Arctic with extended range and endurance that will provide stealth, persistence, and lethality as key capabilities. The future Canadian patrol submarine will employ a unique combination of these attributes to ensure that Canada can detect, track, deter, and if necessary, defeat adversaries in all three of Canada's oceans. It will enable the Government of Canada to contribute to international security through deployments alongside allies and partners, while creating opportunities to strengthen Canada's defense and marine sectors. On August 26th, the Honourable Joel Lightbound, Minister of Government Transformation, Public Works and Procurement, and the Honourable Stephen Furr, Secretary of State of Defence Procurement, announced that the Government of Canada has identified German company ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems, TKMS, and Korean company Hanwha Ocean Company Limited as the two qualified suppliers for the Canadian Patrol Submarine project. This decision was informed by a thorough assessment of Canada's requirements for the CPSP, including construction and delivery timelines for the new submarine fleet. Canada also engaged with other governments and militaries to exchange lessons learned and to gain insights into their respective submarine acquisitions, infrastructure, and sustainment programs. As the current global environment continues to evolve, the CPSP is an opportunity to diversify Canada's defense partnerships and collaborate with allies and partners while creating long-term opportunities for Canada's marine and defense industries. The identification of qualified suppliers is a critical milestone for the CPSP. It is a positive signal that the Government of Canada is taking the necessary steps to provide members of the Royal Canadian Navy with the equipment they need, and that it is prepared to move quickly and decisively to ensure delivery of the first Canadian patrol submarine no later than 2035. As part of the next steps, Canada will conduct in-depth engagements with the two qualified suppliers to continue to advance the procurement process. The Government of Canada remains committed to engaging Canadian industry and creating high-paying jobs at home through the CPSP. As such, Canada intends to leverage work on the submarines to generate economic benefits for Canada's marine and defense industry throughout the fleet's operational life. And when everything was announced, the Minister of National Defense, David McKenty, said, "Today, Canada takes another step toward acquiring next-generation submarines for the Royal Canadian Navy. This is about defending our sovereignty, protecting Canadians, and ensuring our armed forces have the tools they need. Through the Canadian Patrol Submarine Project, we are strengthening alliances, diversifying defense partnerships, and creating opportunities for Canadian industry." And Mélanie Joly, who's the Minister of Industry and Minister responsible for Canada Economic Development for the Quebec regions, says, "Canada is acquiring Canadian patrol submarines to build our sovereign capabilities. In addition to meeting the standard requirements of the Industrial and Technological Benefits Policy, all this work will be done to further Canada's objective of maximizing economic benefits under the forthcoming Defense Industrial Strategy. This generational project will strengthen our economy, create well-paying jobs, and build a more secure, resilient Canada." So there you have it, kids and cubs, narrowed down to two particular proponents or applicants. And as this was announced, because now the companies are jockeying for position, Hanwha Oceans says that the first 4 subs would come before 2035, according to Murray Brewster. Competition to build Canada's new fleet of submarines kicked up a notch, with the South Korean bidder reiterating its pledge to deliver more boats faster than its German rival. Hanwha Ocean Limited, in a statement, expressed its appreciation for the Liberal government's decision this week to narrow the field of bidders to 2 shipyards. The other competitors in the program, potentially worth more than $20 billion, is ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems in Germany. The announcement of the down-selecting from 4 to 2 bidders was made by Prime Minister Mark Carney as he met German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in Berlin on Tuesday. Later that day, Carney toured the TKMS shipyard and pledged to visit the South Korean facility this fall. So we won't get a decision on this before this fall, clearly. Hanwha Ocean and TKMS were picked because expressions of interest from both companies met the bar in terms of the capabilities and the kind of submarine required by the Canadian Navy, Carney said. The South Korean builder is pitching the KSS-3 and submitted a detailed unsolicited proposal to the Canadian government in early March, just prior to the last federal election. In its statement, Hanwha Ocean underlined that with his partner Hyundai Heavy Industries Limited, Canada can get its fleet more quickly and potentially save money. Hanwha can deliver 4 KSS-3 CPS to fully replace Canada's current Victoria-class fleet before 2035, if on contract in 2026, the company said. Canada is expecting its chosen shipbuilder to deliver the first sub by 2035. Hanwha Ocean estimates that an earlier retirement of Canada's aging fleet of subs will result in about $1 billion in savings on maintenance and support costs. So they're basically saying, if we could deliver them to you in 2034, all 4 of them, rather than 2035, you would actually save $1 billion by not having to keep those old ships going. So that sounds like a pretty sweet deal, doesn't it? Clever. Germany's TKMS said in its presentations to Carney and members of his cabinet that it could supply a submarine by 2034 and a second by 2037. The Korean firm countered in its statement on Wednesday, saying not only could it deliver the first of 4 before the retirement of the old fleet, but the additional 8 could be delivered at a rate of 1 per year, meaning the entire fleet of 12 subs could be ready by 2043. No other option can come anywhere close to this delivery schedule, the Hanwha Ocean statement said. The Liberal government has made it a priority to diversify Canada's trading relationships, including bolstering the economy through rebuilding the defense industrial base. Hanwha Ocean appealed to that aspect by saying it was committed to establishing a robust and long-term partnership with Canada's government and industry in the areas of defense, space, sustainable energy, and critical minerals. Interesting development here. Defense Minister David McKendy said that there are a lot of factors to consider and delivery schedule is among them. Quote, I don't know if it will be the determining one, McKendy said Wednesday while visiting Canadian troops deployed on the NATO mission in Latvia. Quote, timelines will be a factor, interoperability will be another. Use in terms of Canadian priorities, for example, in the Arctic will be another. Industrial benefits for Canada will be prominent in whatever proposals come forward. One of the reasons TKMS can only potentially deliver 2 or 3 submarines in the next dozen years is that it's already engaged in building 12 boats for Germany and Norway. South Korean defense experts point out that Europe is still figuring out rearmament after more than 30 years of mothballed defense production lines. Kayla Mijun Kim of the Korean Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade told CBC News in Seoul last spring that the supply chain in Europe is weak. Quote, Germany and France, for example, want to make their own weapon systems, but they're constrained, she said. They cannot procure all the defense components they need from European countries. I think they need some time. Production bottlenecks, an aspect that starkly presented itself as countries rushed to arm Ukraine, have driven some NATO allies to look elsewhere. Since we're talking about this and we're talking about the F-35 as well, whether or not we're going to take the full order from the United States and maybe look at the Gripen from Saab in Sweden, it might be a good idea. Might be, if we're talking about diversification, to get the subs from South Korea and the planes from Europe. And that way we've spread it around and we've started building relationships with 2 different sectors. But I know that the Germans would obviously be very disappointed if we didn't do the subs with them. But it might be in our interest to spread it around in different regions of the world, in this case, rather than doing both with Europe. But what do I know? We're also doing something with Australia, I'm guessing it's similar to over-the-horizon radar because we did buy that from Australia. It was one of those early announcements. But it seems that we have then, after making that announcement, we have made another announcement with regard to that. I'm just looking for it here. No, cannot find it off the top of my head here, unfortunately. So I'll just look one more time here. I haven't seen it. It was a recent announcement there that came in of a deal that we signed to look into that. But oh well, maybe I'll come across it a little later, and then I'll be able to bring it to you. But yes, maybe this is it here. Canada firms up plans for Australian developed over-the-horizon radar. Australia, yes, there it is. Australia and Canada have solidified their bilateral cooperation as Ottawa moves towards adoption of over-the-horizon radar technology on offer from Australia. Nope, sorry, that's still the old one. Very interesting that the new one is tougher to find. I'll maybe find it after when we cue the cock, and I can do a little extra quick search while the credits are playing, and maybe it will come up then. But yes, we are also having a different agreement there and spending some defense money there. So again, like 3 different continents might not actually be a bad idea to spread it around to show the world that we are interested in indeed doing business with a wide array of partners. So there you go, kits and cubs. That's our show for today. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do, especially when you share a little bit of yourself when you share our content. Remember, kits and cubs, if you need us to help you keep in touch with what's going on in the world because you're very busy and you might not always have a chance to watch the live show or even watch it on YouTube, we are portable and you can take us with you thanks to the generous contribution of the Ray Girl, who has once again sponsored our pod page. Podpage.com/The True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words is where you go to, or you can scan that QR code if you're watching, and it will bring you to our pod page site. And when you go there and click on subscribe, whenever we have a audiocast episode, it comes fresh off the bandwidth, goes to your favorite audiocast feed, and therefore you can put us in your ears and take us with you. We're portable. We're very light. So, yeah, we don't weigh you down all that much. So that way you can keep informed and do all the things that you need to do to make your community and your world and your country better. All right, kits and cubs. As well, if you would like to help us, you can do that by taking a trip to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we are still growing in our subscriber base. Thank you so much for everybody who is doing so. We have buttons like, share, and subscribe. Please click them. Kit Elaine will be very happy. Kit Cassie will be overjoyed if you do. And it helps us with the algorithm. So thanks for that. Now, if you'd like to help us in other ways, as Mr. Grizzly mentioned during the show, we do incur some costs in order to bring the show to you, and certain subscription costs and software costs and all that type of stuff have been going up. So we could use your help with that. So if you like the content of our show, you feel it resonates with you, and you would like to encourage us to do more, a contribution to the Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, where every day we fight the scourge that is dry beaver. And that's pretty much the before last sip I've gotten this before I do go dry. So if you want to do your bit to keep your favorite beaver moist, because a moist beaver is a happy beaver, then kits and cubs, a donation to the Emergency Hydration Fund via our coffee page is the way to do so. Coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And we thank you for your donation. Now, if you are doing the Buy Canadian thing, kits and cubs, very, very important. We want to support that too. And we have a way for you to contribute that way, a bank-to-bank transfer via our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. When you send it that way, your transaction is Canadian. The USC Tech Bros do not take a share of your contribution and then take a share of that and hand it back to Donald Trump as tribute so he can do terrible things to us. And because you're not going through them and going from Canadian bank to Canadian bank, we get 100% of your donation. So all that you have decided to put towards supporting the Beaver Lodge comes to the Beaver Lodge. Isn't that fantastic? So if you would like to do that, we would be very grateful. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, we do have our super chat function and some memberships available. If you would like to support us that way, we would be very grateful for your contributions. Kids and Cubs, because democracy is something that you do, we are going to ask you again, if you happen to be in Alberta, to go to forever-canadian.ca and ask you to make a point of going to one of the pop-up spots that are made available, or to make a pledge to sign the petition, make a donation, sign up to be a canvasser in order to get the 294,000 or so signatures that are required to put the question on the Citizens Initiative ballot about Alberta remaining a part of Canada. In the process, creating a positive dynamic for Canadian unity when it comes to this vote, and also making it such that the forces in Alberta that would like to tear us apart cannot ask that question for the next 5 years, which would be very important. So, Kits and Cubs, if you happen to be living in Alberta, please do go to forever-canadian.ca and do what you need to do to support that organization, and that to make sure that you actually sign the petition. Words of wisdom. Well, Mr. Grizzly gave them to us earlier today. Take the time to breathe. Very important. Turn everything off, disconnect, and just take some time to breathe. Connect with your breath. Okay. Kids and Cubs, could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, since you're not here to tell me to cue the cock, I will just imagine that you are. So, Kids and Cubs, on the count of 3, please say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. On 1, 2, and 3. Now, just so you know that I haven't lost my marbles, I know that I can't hear you. But if I could, that would sound glorious. And thus, I must oblige. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. There we go, Kids and Cubs. I found what I was looking for, which is a place called The Watch. Don't know, not familiar with this one, to be totally honest here. But it says, as part of Canada's $38.6 billion plan to modernize North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, in the next 2 decades, the Department of National Defense announced that the military had chosen the first transmit and receive sites in Ontario for the Arctic over-the-Horizon radar project. An OTHR aims to significantly expand the situational awareness of objects approaching and entering Canadian airspace from the north. Okay. Yes, that we knew about already. So yeah. Okay. I'm not sure that this is any additional thing. This is just news about the sites having been selected, which we had talked about before. So maybe I'm misremembering that there was a new announcement on that. I thought I had noticed something, but I guess I must have been wrong. It happens. Kits and Cubs, on the front of Canadians Who Make Us Proud, today, Thursday, so it's going to be over by the time you see this. It happens to be Canada Day here at the US Open, if you're a tennis nut like I am, with all 3 men playing, and the 2 women who are in the doubles draw also playing today. So Denis Shapovalov played his match earlier and had a very good win against Valentin Royer. and he is going to the third round. And as I have been mentioning, the tennis draw gods are not kind to Canada, and that is the case for Denis Shapovalov, because in the third round, he is going to be meeting face-to-face with world number one, Yannick Sinner, four-time Grand Slam champion, recently just won Wimbledon. So yeah, that'll be a tough battle there. On the men's side, Gabriel Diallo, as we mentioned this morning, was playing Muñar from Spain. And I mentioned how he could be a very tricky player and that it was a very tough draw because there was only about 11 spots difference between them in the rankings. And unfortunately, Gabriel Diallo didn't have the stuff today that he needed. And Muñar won it rather handily, actually, in straight sets. So yeah, not the strongest U.S. Open for Gabriel Diallo. He lost 5-7, 3-6, 5-7. And on the court right now, Felix Auger-Aliassime is playing Roman Safiullin from Russia, and it's in the first set with Auger-Aliassime up 4-1 at the moment. So getting off to a pretty good start against Safiullin, who might be a little tired after playing a very, very physical 5-set match to eliminate Gaël Monfils in the first round. In doubles play, Gabriela Dabrowski and her partner Aaron Routliffe, who represents New Zealand, but has grew up a good amount of time in Canada, played their first round doubles match against Skoch and Vondrasova of the Czech Republic and won it handily 6-3, 6-0. But in the others doubles match, and I do not know how I did not, well, actually, I do know how I did not know, because apparently the pairing came up just at the last minute. But as you know, Venus Williams, who is 45, has entered the U.S. Open. She had been granted a wild card because she had never retired, and she was having some medical issues, and now she's gotten over the medical issues, and she's decided that she's not done yet, unfinished business. She wants to keep playing. So she played in the mixed doubles tournament. She was partnered with Riley Opelka, and she didn't go particularly far in that tournament. And then in the singles tournament, unfortunately, the draw gods were unkind to her, and she drew number 11 seed Karolina Muchova from the Czech Republic. And even though Venus Williams won the second set, she ultimately lost the match. Well, she decided that she was going to play women's doubles because an opportunity came up. I guess this was not originally in the plan. And it was, you'll never guess which team called her up. It was Leylah Fernandez's team, asking her if she would like to play doubles with Leylah Fernandez. Now, Leylah Fernandez is no slouch at doubles. In 2023, she reached the final of the French Open with then partner Taylor Townsend. So it seems that Venus Williams agreed to play doubles with Leylah Fernandez. Now, if I am not mistaken, I believe that Venus Williams has 14 Grand Slam doubles titles, so, which makes her someone who really knows what she is doing. Yes, 14 Grand Slam women doubles titles with her sister Serena, including 2 U.S. Opens, and also won the gold medal, I believe, in mixed doubles twice. So she actually has she has a lot of hardware. Let's just put it that way. So we have someone with 14 Grand Slam victories, along with someone who has made a Grand Slam final. They were playing, again, the draw gods were not kind. They were facing the number 6 team in the entire tournament, comprised of Kichenok, Lyudmila Kichenok of Ukraine, and as well a woman who's absolutely fantastic named Ellen Perez, who represents Australia. She has some, she can make some pretty spectacular shots. I'll tell you that. Well, they were down, they were up 2-0 in the first set, and then they were down 5-2, and they managed to claw all the way back to provoke a tiebreaker, which they won 7-4. And then they handily won the second set 6-3. So Venus Williams and Leila Annie Fernandez together, playing together for the first time, defeated the number 6 team, advanced to the second round of the doubles tournament. And this is a combination that could actually do some damage in this tournament. They're both inspired, and they both have nothing to lose. And they are both very, very skilled. So I'd like to see where they can go now that they are in the same half as the draw as the number 1 team. But given the way that they played today, I don't see any reason at all for which they should not be able to get to the semifinal or at least quarterfinal in the doubles tournament. So this is very exciting. And I have never seen so many people in the stands for a doubles match. It was supposed to be played on one court, and then they moved it to the larger court, it seems, because the men's matches on the first court went so long. So they moved it to another match court that had a lot of people, and everybody poured in. I would not be surprised if it was the most watched women's doubles match ever by a live audience. But the crowd was really into it. I've rarely heard a crowd that loud, especially in the first set when they came back from 3 games behind to take the lead. It was incredibly boisterous. So, Leila Fernandez doing well in singles and in doubles, and probably a good idea that she registered for doubles because her 2 or third round singles match is going to be against world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka. Again, terrible draw. She has beaten Sabalenka once before when she had her dream run in singles that brought her to the final of the US Open. But given that it's probably a safe bet if Sabalenka has been playing the way that she's been playing most of the year, that she might have the upper hand on Fernandez to be able to go deep in the doubles draw and focus her attentions on that, playing again with a legend and having all the motivation in the world. That's the kind of magic that makes titles happen, that makes surprise titles happen. So we'll be keeping our fingers crossed. But right now, Leila Annie Fernandez, the way that she's playing, I haven't seen her play with that much focus in a long time, and it's really, really nice to see because she's nailing it. All right, Kits and Cubs, that was a longer Easter egg than I had originally planned, but I'm very excited. So have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll be back with you tomorrow, Tuesday, for a live episode, and I will be with you in person at the regular time, and we can interact because today we have not had that opportunity. Amour et bisous, and like magic, I am gone.